This public hearing agenda, roll call please.
Mark Porter.
Here.
Ty Ward.
Present.
Christy Kessel. Absent. Megan Dowd Robbins.
Here.
Mark Thornton.
Here.
Deborah Williamson.
Here.
And Dave Eastburn.
Here.
Okay, this is a hearing around the 2024-2025 budget amendment. There will be no increase in taxes as a result of the proposed amendment. Residents and taxpayers are welcome to provide comments for or against the amendment at this time. As a reminder, the board conducts its meetings in public but does not engage in discussion with the public during the meeting. While the board will not respond to questions during the hearing, all comments will be noted and may be considered during the approval process. Do we have any written feedback? There's no one in attendance.
We didn't get any.
Okay.
Nothing.
Right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Ty. Hang on here, guys. I'm taking Evan's job. Second by Thornton.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Public hearing.
Hang on.
Take your time.
Christy's not on there because she's not. Carried. Okay. I think that's all I have to do with that one.
Okay,
Try the next one.
let's do it. All right, I failed to acknowledge that it's Monday, June 16th. The time's now 6:32 p.m. and we're gonna call to order this regular board meeting of the Fairfield Community School District. This is the regular monthly meeting of the Board of Directors of the Fairfield Community School District to be held at 6:30 p.m. on the third Monday of each month. The meeting is open to the public and the public is encouraged to attend. Time is provided in the meeting for public input. The mission of the Fairfield Community School Board of Directors is: we empower all students to achieve their highest potential through strong relationships, collaboration, and accountability. The vision of the Fairfield Community School Board of Directors is a destination district where we all belong, learn, and grow. Roll call, please.
Mark Porter.
Here.
Ty Ward.
Present.
Christy Kessel. Absent. Megan Dowd Robbins.
Here.
Mark Thornton.
Here.
Deborah Williamson.
Here.
And Dave Eastburn.
Here.
Okay, thanks. Do we have any perfections?
We
to the
do. There's
agenda?
two of them. The first, when I was looking at this to make sure we were all set, there were a couple things that should have been in the consent agenda and they weren't. It was items 6 and 7. They weren't like new business. It was just, it didn't get put in the right spot. So it was handbooks and the middle school fundraiser. So those were moved into the consent agenda at 5.9
9.
and 5:10, right?
Yes.
Okay. The second one was the cell phone board policy 503.09. We had a little confusion with the policy committee, but we wanted to make sure that the first reading was tonight, so that come July when we have our board meeting and the law is now in effect, we'll be able to approve it at the July board meeting. So that was there as well.
Will we have an opportunity to discuss that later on in the meeting then? Is that-
Yeah,
Yep.
Tile or Mark will share it in his report.
Great.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the agenda with changes?
So moved.
Mark Porter, second.
Second.
Ty Ward.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Consent agenda approved as amended. I mean, the agenda, revised. All right, so we'll move into the focus on learning. We'll hear from you.
Yeah. There'll be a couple documents that I'm going to hit on that I gave you a copy of just so you have it, but the majority of it will be up here. So if you want to get that up, John. Yeah, so thinking about where we're at currently after a year's worth of teaching and learning, really wanted to highlight specifically some of the things that we are evaluated on as a district. And so we'll start with number one. Not working, John.
There you go.
Yeah, I think this is just another big highlight that I wanted to kick this off with. You know, when we think about moving forward, where we're going to go, this process really did take a long time, and it took many meetings and listening to a lot of people. But I do believe as we move forward, we're going to have 100% support for this mission and vision as a district moving forward. So what I'm going to share is the 100% goals that our buildings created, connected to our district goal of 100% of our students showing growth in ELA and math, specifically around academic achievement. Now, obviously, one of the components to being successful in the classroom is being present. And so I wanted to share our attendance data from trimester 3. I've shared the last 2 trimesters, so we're going to jump to that next slide, and it'll be trimester 3. And as you look at this, you should have a copy. We'll go to the high school. You can see there by grade level the breakdown, all at 92 or higher, and then overall 92.73% attendance from our students at the high school. At the middle school, again, almost all close to 95, with the overall average right at 95%. Pence, just over 95%, the 3 grade levels, and then total at Washington was right around 95 as well. Comparatively, again, to years past, this is up significantly, anywhere from 3 to 7%, depending on the building. So positive work around the culture and just space where people want to be. So I wanted to highlight that for sure. All right, when you think about academic achievement and what we're tested on, you probably heard the term FAST, right? Formative assessment systems for teachers. This is something that the FastBridge learning site has, the Department of Ed utilizes, and we have to submit things so often, we have to test so often, and then we can use some of that information to bring back to our teams as they look at what could change or be different. And I asked each building to do this with their teams, so it wasn't just me and the principals out here kind of just getting that data together. I wanted them to own it a little bit more. And so it all came back a little bit different, which I think I probably learned a lesson as to, hey, here's the format I want it back in, so it would all be a little bit more systematic or similar in the way that it's presented. But you all have access to this presentation as well. I did share it with you. So when you do have time, if you want to go back and look, if there's questions, I don't hesitate to reach out. But I wanted to start with kindergarten, reading and math. If you're looking at last year, the fall to spring proficiency, they went from 35% to 45%. This year, the kindergarten class, fall to spring, went from 58 to 61% proficient. So they came in obviously quite a bit higher, saw growth, which was positive. And then the thing that I think is really, really awesome to see is 100% of our students this year in kindergarten showed growth, which is a highlight. In math, spring proficiency last year, it went from 59% to 55%, so fall to spring in that first box. And then the second one, fall to spring, went from 69 to 58. So we saw decline in the proficiency based on what happened throughout the course of the year. This is a theme we saw in quite a few of our math grade levels. So our teams have identified that as a priority for sure, in addition to the ELA work that we're going to continue. Fall to spring growth for the current kindergarten class was right at 59%. Jump over to first grade. Fall to spring proficiency went from 39 to 36 last year. If you look at this year, from fall to spring, you went from 31 to 44% proficient. Of those 44% proficient students, 89%, or not of the 44%, but of all the kids, 89% of them showed growth. Math, last year, you can see there from 50 to 37. This year, fall to spring proficiency was 54 to 49. 5% decrease, and then again the growth from fall to spring was 84%. And the reason there's still pretty solid growth is because the metric changes from fall to spring, obviously, and what that target is. So kids still grew, they just didn't reach the proficiency numbers that they should have throughout the course of the time that they were in first grade.
That's what I was getting ready to ask. It's not that they're going backwards, it's that
Correct.
the standards are changing.
And they're not making the growth that they should.
Yeah.
So then Pence broke it down a little bit different with both A reading, A math, and CBMR. what you saw from Washington was the CBMR. So A, reading is adaptive, A, math is adaptive. This is something that changes based on how the kids respond to the question prior, kind of like ISASP is in some of the tests. So again, the highlights here you can look at, I'll probably stick on the far right. 56% of the students were proficient in second grade. When you look at the number of students that grew, all three of those areas was 100% from fall to spring, and I highlighted that on the bottom. And that connected directly to the goal. The thing that Pence did a little bit differently when they highlighted theirs is they wanted to see the number of students that were proficient and or the number of students that made the growth that they were supposed to. So that's a little bit different, if that makes sense. So that 100% number represents the kids that are proficient and the kids that grew. Third grade, again, similar, those first three columns. The CBMR, you can see 50% of the kids were proficient. 100% in that area grew or were proficient. When you look at ISASP, because this is the first year that we bring that in ELA, 63% were proficient. And again, this hasn't been officially publicized yet. Last year it was like June 4th. This year it still isn't out there yet, so I don't know why it's taking so long. And then math proficiency was right at 62%. If you look at that 63% number and then jump to this document right here that I gave you, you can see that 63% number under the class of 2034. That's grade 3. And if you look at the prior third graders coming in the last 7 years, it's the highest we've had as far as proficiency. Mm-hmm. So that's a positive thing, and hopefully that will then, not hopefully, it should equate to higher proficiency rates as we get to those higher grade levels. And then fourth grade, 60% on the CBMR, and again 100% either grew or were proficient from fall to spring. When you look at ELA, fourth grade, just under 70% were proficient, and math was right at 60%. That jump, that 69% proficient in ELA, went from 51% as third graders when they came in and had their first experience with ISASP to 69%. So that's a significant number of kids that went from not proficient to proficient, which is a celebration for sure. All right, we can jump to fifth grade. Yeah, if you have questions as we're going, don't hesitate. Similar with fifth grade, there's the three that are all part of the FAST CBMR, A reading and A math. I like to stick with the CBMR, and really the reason why is because it kind of brings it all together, connects to fluency, which then equates to better comprehension. But 98% of the students grew from fall to spring. If you look at ISASP, ELA, again, 69% of the fifth grade class was proficient in ELA. Of those, not of the 69, of all of the fifth grade students, 88.7 of them grew. Now, if you go back, you notice I didn't have that for third and fourth grade, the number of students that grew, because they didn't go into every single student on the ISASP and do that. Carly and her team did do that at the middle school. So that's how that number is there, because it's not something we can just pull from our on-demand reports that we currently have. You have to do that by hand.
Wait, say that again? Sorry.
Yep, so if you go back to fourth grade, you'll notice only have the proficient numbers. But if you go to fifth, there's also the percent of students that grew connected to the ISASP, ELA, and math. That was looking at last year's test as a fourth grader individually. That kid, Charlie whatever, did he grow the next year? That would be part of that 88.7%. But that was done by hand. We don't have that currently on a published report. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I just have a question about what that growth is. Is it growth from the percent proficient? Like if a student was,
no,
or it's just showing growth from that year prior?
Showing growth from the year prior for that individual student, and then how many of those students showed that growth. That's the 88.7.
So technically, some kids could be showing growth, but declining in proficiency. So that's the gap I feel like maybe we're potentially missing. Does that make sense in
It could
some of the
grow,
metrics?
but not be meeting the standard, which is what we saw in the previous one. So they could be growing a
Right,
little.
or say they were already proficient, but then they
Didn't grow.
they were 80% proficient, but then they didn't get whatever
The year's growth,
advancements,
yep.
so then they're dropped down to 70% proficient. They're still proficient,
But they didn't show growth. And that would be shown in that 88.7.
okay.
They would be a part of the, whatever that is, 11.3%.
Okay, so
That
it's
ma-
not like a number. So I mean, because sometimes if you're at like a 550 and then you're at a 600,
The number means something different every year though. So you
Right.
can't use the same number, if that makes
this is why
sense.
it's a little complicated.
Yeah,
Just want to make sure, because if the number is increasing, but somehow the proficiency, the percent proficiency is decreasing, are they still showing growth? I guess is the question. Does that make?
it does.
Okay.
Yep. Does that make sense what she's asking? So every year, that cut score changes. So we can't just use that cut score throughout the whole course of a student's career taking this test because every year that changes. So when we're looking at growth specifically, we have to look at what
That's what
does.
she did here.
Yes,
Okay.
for each grade level. Good
Yeah.
question.
Because if you go back to like third grade, that's even more confusing because they broke it down. So like if you look at third grade slide on the CBMR, where it's like 42 of the 49 made growth from winter to spring.
Yep.
But if you look down at the bottom, it says 100%. And then explain that one to me: growth and or proficient fall to spring.
Yeah, so we could have had, let's say those other 7 kids were proficient, but didn't show growth. Does that make sense? So now I don't know that. But what that 100% is telling you is from fall to spring, every single kid was either proficient or they showed growth that they should have from fall to spring.
Right. So if you look up higher, there's still 51% below proficiency.
Correct. But of those
Yeah.
51, every single one of them showed growth throughout the course of the
Right.
year from the fall to the
Right.
spring,
Yeah.
but didn't reach proficiency.
Yeah. Back to your point though, I
Yep.
think we need to get on the same one because otherwise you just look at these and like you can make up whatever number you wanted to show. Like this one is different because you're doing the and or, which I don't know that the next ones are.
Pence was the only one that had their goal written that way.
Okay.
It wasn't 100% growth, it was 100% proficiency and or growth. That was their goal. And that's why they were reporting out the way that they did.
Okay.
But yeah, moving forward, it'll be this. We want to give some autonomy to the building levels to create their goals, but as far as how we report, that could be something that becomes more consistent.
Yeah, it just gets hard to analyze it
Yep.
in a way that makes sense when you have all these percentages and numbers that don't correlate across every grade.
Yeah.
So,
And so, like when they went through this as a leadership team, they created some of the highlights and then some action steps connected to actual students as to what they're going to do differently. As long as those kids come back. 6th grade. And here you can see a change from a math to MAP. We don't have to kids don't have to take it. It's not by law. You don't have to take all of the fast stuff in 6th grade. We use MAP as another tool. So you can see again the proficiency in the spring in that third column over, and then the percent of students who grew. Proficiency 74% ELA, 74% in math, and then the growth in both of those was pretty positive. Jump to 7th grade. Again, ELA, ISASP 81, math was very similar. The number of students that grew was very similar. When you look at this document, again, you can kind of, if you want to go to, it'd be the class of 2030,
Yeah.
7th grade, I believe.
I think so.
And that class was one of 2 that didn't show significant growth in proficiency in ELA. 6 of the 8 did, but that class was one that didn't. If you look at it's from 3rd grade on, there's been significant growth, but yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty proficient and
Yeah.
already, right? 80. Which metric are you looking at, ISASP or are you?
I was looking at ISASP, yeah.
So they're already at 81%, which is higher than.
They were at 84 though last year.
But they were at 84
Oh.
last year.
Yeah,
Let's see.
see what I'm saying?
Oh, okay, I was looking at math, got it,
Yep, no,
yeah,
math, there was significant
yeah.
jump, for sure. Eighth grade? Again, a big highlight here is almost 90% of the class was proficient in ELA, which is, I mean, that's really, really good. That went from 76% to 87. 91% of the kids grew. Math was at 68. 91% of the kids grew. 67% in science. And I talked a little bit about this with some of you individually. We had a lot of growth, which was positive in science. But if you look at where they were at as fifth graders, I think they were at 54% proficient. And then as eighth graders, up to 67. So that's 13% jump in proficiency. One of the unique things that we do in our science classrooms at the middle school, the standards are more broken down by what teachers really like value as far as their strengths and what they can teach and assess. So like there could be some standards that would be considered sixth grade standards that aren't being taught until seventh or eighth grade, and vice versa, if that makes sense. So the scope and sequence may not be exactly the way that it should be lined out. And that's something that we're going to dive into a little bit more intentionally next year. When it's all said and done, you know, we still have significant room for growth if only 67% of our kids are proficient in science when they're leaving the middle school. But we did see a good chunk of kids that went from not proficient to proficient over the course of their middle school experience. So that's a positive. All right, and really at the high school level, we don't give another assessment that would be considered uniform or consistent across the board. You know, oftentimes you look at the number of D's and F's. Some of our classes give kind of a summative, you know, end of course exam or assessment, but not very many of them. There's other things we could look at, but right now all we have is ISASP, so that's what this is. And this was comparing the current ninth grade class to last year. Again, 89% of the current freshman class going to be sophomores is proficient. 89% is, again, a really good number. If you look at compared to last year, there were combining the advanced and the proficient. It was at what, 87? I think it went up to 89. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Something like that, 86 to 89. And the not yet proficient also changed in ELA, so that was a positive thing. Same for math. We saw growth up to 80%, I believe, as a class, and the not yet proficient went from 32% of the group when they were eighth graders. That had a significant decrease to 20%, which is really positive. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. I also wanted to highlight this high school this year. 94.3% of our kids were actively involved in some type of a outside of school club, sport, fine arts. So only not quite 6% of our kids weren't, which is huge. Mm-hmm. And that's all grade levels. So.
Are you guys doing something to encourage that, or is that just happening on its own?
That was one of the building priorities, was to increase the number of students involved in something. So we added some additional clubs. We pushed out communication quite a bit. We had more assemblies that kind of highlighted some of the things that kids could be involved with.
Do you feel like teachers are out actively recruiting that, or students just kind of doing that?
I think it's a combination of both. Yeah, definitely from the administration in the building pushing that as a priority for sure.
What was the increase again?
I don't know what the increase was in that specifically, but the number was not just over 94% of the current. Well, seniors are gone now, but of this last 4 year, the 4 grade level was just over 94% of our
Okay.
kids.
That
There
seems-
is data that supports that kids that are involved in extracurricular activities tend to do better in schools, and there's some data to support that.
There's both do better in school, attend more frequently, graduate in 4 years, all of it. Yep.
That's great.
We'll go to 10th grade. And again, just looking at this year, of that 10th grade class, 85% were proficient in ELA. And I know we want 100%, you know, of our kids to be proficient, but when you look at other, not comparing, but comparing, like, it's really good. Those are really good numbers. We still have, you know, 15 to 18 kids that aren't yet proficient, but yeah, when you look at the growth from as a freshman to their sophomore year, we decreased from 24 to 15% of the not yet proficient category, which is really good.
At what time of year
Yeah.
are they taking?
Spring,
So are some of the kids not in math when they're taking, like,
the ISAS,
yeah? Like,
potentially,
so
yep.
I'm just be curious if not having a math currently
during that
during
time.
that time would show any.
Yeah, they could have it, you know, first and second or second and third. We try not to go first and third, but from a trimester standpoint.
Now, when you guys determine they're not yet proficient, I mean, do you have data to support what their actual grades are in those subjects to kind of?
Yeah, so the not yet proficient is strictly based on that one assessment. This is just ISASP. So this doesn't connect to any of the GPAs or their grades or anything like that.
I get that. My concern is that if you have a student that's getting an A or a B and they're not proficient,
Yep.
I find that to be problematic. You know.
Yeah, how would that be possible?
Yeah, and that's my question. Do you guys conduct that research to try to dig into what their grades?
You sure
are?
could, yeah. Every single, like I said, like we could go into those 15% proficient and I could pull up those 18 kids
Yeah.
and then compare that with currently where they're at in school for sure.
Because at the younger grades, it doesn't concern me as much, but when you're talking about a sophomore, junior, senior,
Yep.
it's very problematic because you don't want kids getting A's and then going to college and not being prepared at all. And
Correct.
That's where I'm at. You know?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, that'd be a pretty simple thing to look at.
There's also the metric of how the student's doing within the district and then how the student's scores are to the rest of, so I don't know if there's some,
They have it comparable to your AEA and then also the state as a whole.
okay, so is there?
We don't have any of that yet, but
Okay.
once the published reports come out, we get all of that.
Got it, okay.
There's also college readiness that they measure and stuff, and we typically do very well on that.
Let's hop to the last one, John. This definitely was our worst at the high school. The juniors just for whatever reason didn't do well, whether it was a trying thing or a lack of instruction their junior year in whatever courses they were in. The only, I would say, we saw growth in the advanced side of things for both ELA and math. It went from 6% to 9% and then from 3 to 8. But other than that, the not yet proficient went up, the proficient went down. We did see growth on the advanced learner side. That was it. And we didn't go in, the high school team didn't go in and have each, kid to see what was the percentage of students that grew. So on this specific ISASP assessment. Yeah, the other piece, and this I wouldn't say is so much connected to the student success, but when you think about a high school experience or maybe even an experience within the system as a whole, we have some feedback from the class of 2025 that I wanted to share with you. John, if you want to jump to the next one. So there were a lot of questions on this survey, but some of these are specific to just the learning experiences and how it connected to their academic growth. So you can kind of look here. Which of the following best describes the impact your classroom experience has had on your academic growth? Red and blue are the ones we're looking for, either extremely positive or somewhat positive. 30% really, not neither here nor there. And and then we had a couple that were somewhat negative. We had 77 people respond, but not all of them responded to each question. We didn't require every question, so on this one it was just 66 of the 100-ish kids that filled that were in that class. We didn't have like a follow-up to these for this one. It was really just asking this question, so there wasn't like specific descriptors. We really didn't want to single out specific teachers or courses. I think there's room for improvement on how we get this feedback, but next one, John. Oh, I got it.
All right.
It's working. Yeah, how well did your coursework prepare you for whatever's next? Again, if you look at the blue and the red, adequately or very well, over 50%, somewhat. And then we had a few in there at the not very well or not at all. And this is something that Mallory will use with her BLT, is just from an awareness standpoint, I think, to start the school year, because this was right at the very end of the year. Did I miss one? So 71, so this was just the senior class, over almost 86% of them participated in some type of extracurricular. About 86 of them percent had a job, which is kind of crazy. I mean, it's good, but it's a lot. It's a lot of kids working while they're in school. One word that you would use to describe your experience at FHS. Still do that sometimes. This is kind of a, I don't know what those are called, word cloud. Eventful, all right, interesting, fun, memorable, entertaining, lackadaisical. It was a blur, stressed, long, okay. Lessons, fast, eventful, mundane, good times, stressful.
Shalom.
I forget what that means.
I don't either. Ambivalent, confused, positive, knowledgeable, eventful. And again, I think, as Mallory and her team look at how we can better use some of this feedback, whether it's end of course or end of grade level or end of, senior year, is really asking for some feedback on, hey, what's something we could tweak or do differently to make it better. This is more just establishing what the seniors' current reality was as they called it a career at the high school. So, the last one I think just connected to their plans. Again, looking at private or public school, a little over 40%, another 34% community college, two-year private. I'm not sure. I don't even know what those are. It's a two-year private.
The other post-secondary education, what would that be?
That could be some type of, I don't know. I'd have to ask what they were trying to get out of that one. I was thinking like maybe
maybe that be trades. Well,
no, they have apprenticeship. I guess could be maybe like that, or getting a industry recognized credential somewhere.
So
spending 6 months doing that.
So out of 71 responses, is that just one apprenticeship then? If it didn't get a percentage on it then, or?
I could probably click on. Let me see if I can click on it.
The apprenticeship, is that trade school or is that just simply?
No, I'd say that's like actually getting into an apprenticeship.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look
I
and
would
see.
think others that was secondary might be trade school.
That's what I'm getting ready to say. It'd have to be trade school, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's what I'm reading that.
That's what I'm looking for, is trade school. It still kind of almost surprised me. That's all the more we got for trade schools. But,
Would someone select community college for trades too? If
I mean, potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
Potentially, yeah.
I'm just gonna find that specific one so I can tell you how many kids that is. It was 3. Three of the 71 was an apprenticeship.
Cool. I just find it interesting to know what those apprenticeships are, but
Yeah, so the majority, 24 kids, community college, 19 four-year public, 13 four-year private.
I would say some of this community college would have to be trade school, surely, don't you think?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what else do you want to know, or what else could I get as far as information that would be helpful? Where did I put my pen?
My sisters? Can I take it? You can have one. I mean, it's a lot of great data. It's good to see the growth. I'm glad we're talking about it a lot more.
Well, I think too, the proficiency numbers connected specifically to ELA and the ISASP is really, that's a big thing.
I think that was really good data. I think it'd be great if we had a way to actually poll graduates a year after they graduated, and then in hindsight, basically state, did they feel they got out of their high school years prepared for whatever it was that they did that freshman year of college or whatever it may be. I don't know if you'd have a way to do that, but if we could poll.
They get sent something, but I mean, this was, again, I can't remember what it's called, Clearinghouse maybe? But we are supposed to send them something after their first year.
Yep.
But I don't know what follow-up looks like, or how much we get, or if we do anything with that.
I know the further you get from high school, the more difficult that is, but within a year, if we had a way to contact them. Just
And
get some good
all the
data
institutions, they track that too, and I think we have access to that, so I can check with the counseling department at the high school.
back. Or even if you just have a survey on the website or whatever, you send out a postcard and say, hey, please log in and take this survey or whatever it may be.
Yep.
I think we could get a lot of good data that way, if students would be able to take the time to do it.
Do we do any of these? I mean, they'd obviously be different questions, but some of the ones at the end for like the rest of the high school grades.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's been a practice. I'm sure some teachers give it end of course. I mean, I did that as a teacher just for my own benefit, really, to see what was good, what they didn't like, what I could tweak,
Because some of these would be interesting, like, yeah, we get it as they leave, but that's too late, really.
Right.
I mean, we could try and take that, but every class is probably pretty unique in what they think is useful. To just help.
Yeah, my experience has been if we can, I don't know if convince is the right term, but like, as a practitioner who wants to get better, I should want to survey the kids I'm serving to see what, right, we can do different, what I can do differently. So if we can build that into kind of an end of course, I think that would be best practice at the high school level. But again, it's only useful or beneficial if there's, intentional thought around looking through it and then adjusting or making a tweak. SIAC, that'll be something that we bring in middle school and high school kids. It'll be our third meeting of the year. We'll have some structured questions that they'll all be able to speak to. And my experience with that is there's been some things that we've definitely either tweaked or changed holistically for whether it was the middle school or the high school in my prior district. So that can definitely be a start next year.
So Zach, are you satisfied with the trend that you see from this first year? It seems that we have made some positive trend. Just first time I've looked at this data and trying to piece through it. And where are the strengths and weaknesses academically in our school district?
Yeah, I'd say for sure from a ELA standpoint, really impressed with this last year's both growth and proficiency. I do think we still had, I think 5 of the 8 grade levels showed growth and proficiency in math, but I do think that's an area where we're gonna have to dial it in a little bit from a, what are we assessing, what are we guaranteeing, what's the sequence? I know we switched to a new math curriculum a couple years ago. Is that the right resource to use? Yeah, so opportunity definitely would be in the math arena. I think from a ELA standpoint, how can we continue to build it into more than just an English classroom? Because that's a really, I think, unique opportunity too, whether that's at the middle school or secondary level. intentionally. So for me, it starts with our guaranteed and viable curriculum. Have we prioritized exactly what it is we want our kids to know and to be able to do by the end of said grade level, said course? That hasn't happened intentionally yet, so that's definitely gonna be step one for next year within our collaborative learning teams.
And just one more question, just to make
Yep.
sure I'm reading this right. It looks like that there is some kind of drop off between 10th and 11th grade. The 11th graders' trend line is going down. Is there an issue at the high school? Is there an issue with that? Or am I reading that not correctly?
Yeah, without really diving in, I'd speak to one of two things. It's either lack of care or effort on behalf of the juniors, because it's their last time and they don't see why there's value in it. Or it could come down to, what group of teachers are serving our juniors the most and whether or not the practice and what's happening in classrooms is conducive to growth in these areas. Could be a combination of both. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I would definitely say that's a fair.
That would seem to be something from these trend lines that we would really have to dive into, because
Yeah.
it seems like once they get from the middle school and then get past 10th grade, the trend line starts going down.
Yeah.
The advanced learners increased,
Yes, but I'm
But then
talking,
the
the
mid-
whole,
dropped, yeah,
yeah.
so.
I mean, it seems like at that point, we have a bifurcation. The kids who are serious and who are involved and maybe going on to college or whatever are going this way, and then the other ones are.
Yeah.
Is that something in your experience that you see in a lot of high schools, or is that a little bit more prevalent in this one that you did?
I would say just this first year, it's more prevalent from what I'm looking at data wise here probably than my prior two districts. But
Okay, thanks.
yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yep, you bet.
Okay, let's move along to our committee reports. We'll start with policy. Mark, can you give us an update?
Yes, we met on Friday, June 6th. And we went over several that you'll have to see in front of you today. Most of these still came out of the spring primer that we get from IASB. So these were ones that had changes that we want to try and get ahead of as we go through the list of all of them. Tad, we tried to take your advice of doing the compare. I don't think it came out the way I wanted to yet, so give us another couple months for
Compare what?
so you can see what we're cutting out, like compare them. So what was in there was our first pass, but we'll clean that up even some more so you can actually read it cleaner than what it is. So, and then Evan and I are meeting to go over all of the policies, and when the last one was, we had a spreadsheet that was handed down from prior, and we're not completely confident in all those, so we're trying to figure out a way to get all those aligned. So him and I met once already, and we're gonna meet again, I think sometime in June, hopefully before it ends, to get that overall spreadsheet ready to go, so we can make a bigger list of cutting it down, so it's not all hopping around all over the place. We'll kind of have this section will be whatever, July, this will be in the fall type of ones that we can put through. So the big highlight is we have the cell phone policy out for first reading. So
Are we gonna go on that in better detail than the cell phone?
yeah, we'll go through those ones when we get down to the bottom.
Great, thanks. Ty?
Strategic planning, we met on June 12th. We talked about marketing, just, using our marketing budget, and during the summer, still trying to get some of this really positive stuff that we're just talking about out there. Make sure we're marketing our school in the best way. We talked about the geo bonds, some of the new plans, the new drawings, how it's changing square footage wise, and where we're going to put it on the where they're planning on putting it on the lot. just some of those things for the GEO bond. We talked about SIAC. We had our first SIAC meeting. It was really positive. SIAC is School Improvement Action Committee, I believe. And yeah, we had about 30 people, I think, somewhere around there in the room. And we set the future meetings for Mondays, I think, going forward. Every couple months, I think. We talked a little bit about curriculum, with a new curriculum director jumping on board this summer, just kind of like what the goals are with that, getting our K through 8 kind of on a very complementary path, so they're not jumping through different types of instruction every year when they go from grade to grade. And I think that's about it.
Great. Mr. Easterburn.
Okay, Megan. We had a very comprehensive meeting, so hopefully this will take 2 to 3 minutes. Some of this will impact what we're working on the agenda, so hopefully this will help us out. So we did meet on Monday, June 9th. First item was John Grunwald presented an overview of the district's E-rate program that provides funding for both external and internal technology, hardware, and connectivity. The present program is due to expire next year, and the district desires to utilize available funds. Federal dollars in this program offset costs up to 70%, with the vendor taking on the reimbursement risk, which was positive. Although these upgrades are not in our facilities plan, there's an opportunity to upgrade the district's internet bandwidth to 2 gigs. To take advantage of this favorable external connection for our students and staff, the district needs to make improvements in access points, switches, and cabling. There is also an opportunity to add uninterruptible power supply devices to support the disaster recovery plan. The cost of the district's PEPAL fund will be approximately $190,000, which represents 30% of the project's expenses, and the Finance Committee, by unanimous consent, recommends board approval. Number 2, the committee reviewed the instructional support levy. The instructional support program was established by Iowa law to support additional funding to the general fund. It is funded by a combination of property tax levy and income tax surcharge and instructional support aid. The levy was established by board action for a 5-year period and is due to expire this year. Presently, the ISIL is 0.87 of the general fund levy and provides the districts with $994,000 in revenue. It is noted that the levy rate is higher because the state has not funded their portion of this program since it was instituted. The Finance Committee, by unanimous consent, recommends approval of renewal of the instructional support levy for another 5 years. Number 3, the committee reviewed the preliminary FY26 Department of Management aid and levy document. The document captures the variances in the district's certified budget and actual aid levy rates and expenditures. The purpose is to assess the credibility of the district's budget process, understanding that certain items must be estimated. The variances were not material and were justified. So that's the difference between our certified budget and then what actually comes out after the legislature meets. So it was quite positive, and any variances were not material and justified. 4, the committee reviewed the AEA Special Education Media and Educational Service funding. The district opts to pay the estimated amount up front, with the AEA providing quarterly recapitulation to track the usage. The risk is that the district will not use all the services. If we pay it up front, we don't use the services, we lose those funds. But it's easy. That's an easy way to do it instead of paying it invoice by invoice by invoice. So, and Evan tracks that quite specifically. Number 5, the committee reviewed the transfer of funds from the flexible health spending account to the general fund. The Iowa Education Department has stated that districts can claim funds that have been built up over many years of staff members missing the legal window of spending. The district has approximately $51,000 in that account, and a transfer to the general fund would increase the cash reserve, mitigating the risk of a higher utilization rate in the new self-funded health plan. The Finance Committee, by unanimous consent, recommends this cash transfer to provide potential health fund premium relief. So that'll be on the agenda later. And finally, number 6, the committee reviewed the proposed budget amendment for FY26 that particularly affected support services. The district will need 81 paraeducators now to cover the IEPs and legal service requirements, especially for elementary age students. This is up from the projected 71. Using an average hourly wage, workday hours, annual number of workdays, and the associated benefits, the budget impact is an additional $199,600. Under the most likely scenario of added staff and resignations, the district's UAB will then be 14.9%, which is slightly below the policy limit of 15, but not much. And the solvency ratio will be 13.8%, which is excellent. The Finance Committee recognizes that these staff numbers are hard to predict as they rest on actual enrollment numbers and demographics, and the committee finds the budget results acceptable for FY 2026. The committee, by unanimous consent, recommends approval of the budget amendment. Respectfully submitted.
Great. Thank you, Dave.
I had a question.
Yes.
It's probably not for you, it's probably more for John, but the E-rate is kind of based on our free and reduced lunch, if I remember correctly. Has that changed at all? Our amount of rebate from that?
E-rate is based on, for category 1 for your percentage is the free and reduced. And in my time here, there was one time, I think we were up to 80%, but all of the other years it's been at the 70%. So yes, based on our free and reduced numbers, that's what determines your percentage.
But that isn't one and the same, so it doesn't mean 70% of our kids were free and reduced,
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but we're staying pretty steady there,
Yeah.
and there's
Yes.
no material change there.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yep. And the other thing too, for the category 2, which is what was talked about in there, that is based on a per pupil number. So that does not have to do with free and reduced. The percentage does, but what they give you for a budget for category 2 is based strictly on your enrollment numbers.
Perfect, thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, John.
Great. Facilities.
Yep.
Mark.
So kind of the same topic conversation. It sounds like we all talked about E-rate pretty aggressively, and Dave pretty much covered everything that we talked about there. The only difference that I kind of had in my notes was I think in my notes the total project was only supposed to be around $380,000, and then our out of pocket was going to be a lot $190, which I don't think really matters to in the whole swing of things. But that was the only.
Yeah, he said it was 190.
Yeah.
Total cost.
Total cost was $380.
Correct.
That was really the only difference that I had in my notes. So we discussed that. Another big topic of conversation that we discussed that you guys maybe haven't heard is that our facilities director Josh Wiley is resigning as of July 15th. So the district is going to be swiftly and aggressively looking to fill that position. Zach talked about kind of a plan there last week, but I think we received an email this morning stating that isn't going to come through. Is that correct, Zach?
Yep.
So if you guys know anyone that is interested in that position, it's a very big position, but a very important position for the district. So I hopefully we can get something figured out there in the next couple weeks. Have you guys posted on that, Zach, or what is the game plan there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's posted and we've already got applicants, so
Oh, okay.
we've sent it to other places too to get it on their job board, so we'll see what we get.
Okay, great.
We're going to Iowa Works job fair next Wednesday as well.
Okay,
So
sounds like you guys are on top of it then.
I think Evan was posting it during our strategic planning.
he was.
Have you discussed about the way that you're going to design the position? Are you going to try to set up exactly as it was before, or what? Are you guys just going to see what the applicants are and then go from there?
Yeah, it'll be a director of operations position. I think the nuances around responsibilities or oversight could probably be tweaked a little bit based on who the successful candidate is.
Okay. Great. And then the only other thing we talked about is we talked about kind of some upcoming changes in the designs of FEH for the new bond and the middle school. One of the more significant things that we discussed is in the past we never explored the possibility of having a second floor in the middle school. That has kind of changed a little bit. They are exploring that. Previously, we've been told that just there was a lot more difficulties with that, more expenses given an elevator, things like that. Now we're being told, maybe it's not as bad as maybe we thought. So, that's kind of one of the big things that we're discussing there. We'll take a look at that. But the 2 floors will only be on, is it one academic wing or all the academic wings?
Just the academic wing.
Just the academic wing.
Yeah.
So So that was really the end of it. I mean, we only met for about 25 minutes, so it was a real short, sweet meeting. But the big takeaway from that is just the facilities director position, because that's really, really important. We've made a lot of good progress with that the last several years, so it's going to be a big hole to fill for the district. So.
Great, thanks.
Just one question. How are we doing on summer projects? Usually that's when we do a bunch of work, or is it all
Yeah, we
scaled
didn't
up, ready
really
to
talk
go,
about
or-
it. To my understanding, you guys are doing the drop ceiling at the high school right now. How's that coming along?
It's supposed to start right away afterwards, but it didn't. It didn't start till last week. Then there's the big things with Washington kind of shifting with the bus changes.
Yep.
So we got those bids back. Haven't presented anything, but that should start in the next 2 weeks.
Yep. What week will the gym floor be done?
That doesn't start until the 3rd week of July. It should take just over 2 weeks.
It'll be done by the time camp
Volleyball
starts.
starts August 4th. Yep.
So it's gonna be in a very tight window then. So
Yeah, I can't remember the exact date, but it's like July, might be the 14th, I think,
yep.
is when it shuts down.
So they did discuss that our former facilities director might be willing to help out a little bit if we don't have something found to kind of oversee a little bit, in a time of need with some of those projects. Is that still expected?
Yeah, so Josh would be able to consult a little bit if need be.
Yeah.
Yeah, yep,
Because it's gonna be a pretty dire time to have someone in that position, but
for sure.
Okay. All right, I think that's all our committee reports for tonight. We'll move along to consent agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
With that
With
perfection.
the perfection, yeah.
So moved.
Second.
First Ty Ward, second Porter.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, approved.
Okay, you got it?
Okay, public participation. Doesn't seem like we have anyone here tonight. Anything written, submitted? No?
Nope, nothing.
All right, we'll move along to new business. Do I hear a motion to approve the resolution the resolution of the Storm Protection Fund as presented and authorize participation in the Storm Protection Fund, a risk pool established under the Iowa Code Chapter 28E and Chapter 670?
So moved.
Second.
Davey Spurn, second by Deborah.
So I didn't see on here, does this cost money? Is this
It's gonna
something?
be just over $30,000 with the new law that just got passed. We have to have this type of insurance now. And there was a group of individuals from ISFIS, ISJIT, a couple others that decided, hey, what if we could create this pool that's gonna limit the amount of cost for schools? And there's over 100 that have already said we're gonna join this and have gotten it. We really kind of vetted it because we wanted to make sure it was the right decision for the district, but it's 3 times more expensive if we don't. So
is it essentially just a captive for schools? Is that what?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so how do the deductibles work? And then is there a certain deductible we have if the storm comes through? And then what's the max payout we can get, or how does all that work?
I don't know I don't know the specifics, but it'll cover everything. I don't know what our deductibles would be through the captive, but it'll totally depend on where storms are and who gets hit, depending on what happens with our premiums.
That's my only concern. If you have derecho go through a certain portion of the state, it could be a pretty widespread issue. And if there's enough money there to actually,
There'll be a significant amount of money this first year. I can't remember the total dollar amount, but
but that was legislation that came through that we had to be covered for it.
Mhm.
That come from the state then.
Yep.
Any other questions on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Do I hear a motion to approve the resolution to consider continued participation in the instructional support program and to set a public hearing as outlined?
So moved.
Second.
First by Davey Spurn, second Ty Ward.
Any discussion? Any questions?
Is there anything here we need to be concerned about, or?
This is what Dave was speaking to.
So it's simply, we can do this, we can renew this in this instructional support program that's established by the state law. We can do it by board for 5 years.
Every 5
Or we
years.
could take it to the voters and go for 10 on a levy. It adds almost $1 million in revenue to support our general fund.
And the majority of these funds we use for professional learning, professional development, things like that.
So yeah, the finance committee is recommending approval.
If we didn't approve it, then what would the ramifications of that be then?
We wouldn't get the 900 grand. We could then go to the community and put it up for a vote. And if we got, I don't think it's 60%, I think it's 50, then we would get it for 10 years as opposed to 5.
Yep.
But locally at the board table, we can approve it every 5.
Is this some? I mean, I'm not advocating for this by any means. I'm just curious. Is this something that schools sometimes deny and then they do have to take it to a vote, or is this pretty much?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Yep.
I've kind of been through this before. I'm just making sure nothing's changed. So.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries, resolution carries. Do I hear a motion to approve the budget amendment as presented?
So moved.
Second.
First by Deborah, second by Thornton.
And Dave spoke to this. Does anyone have any questions about this amendment? No? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Amendment carries. Budget amendment carries. All right, do I hear a motion to approve the depositories as presented for the 2025-2026 school year?
So moved.
Second.
Mark and
Do we have a
Deborah?
roll call on this one, so please?
Sure.
Hang on. I think I had the wrong.
Did I skip one?
No.
Okay.
So on the depositories, can you kind of refresh us a little bit on what you guys did, Zach, to kind of? I know you reached out to several other banks, and basically you guys went with the best bid, correct?
Yeah, and we approved that at
Yep.
the last meeting. And so I think this is now outlining,
Where it's going.
yeah.
Yep.
We wanted a roll call.
Yes,
Any
please.
other questions?
But who was first?
I moved it.
You moved it. Mark Porter, who was second?
Deborah's.
And Deborah.
Deb was second, okay.
Any other questions on it? All right, we'll have a roll call vote.
All right, Mark Porter,
Yes.
Ty Ward,
Abstain.
Megan Dowd Robbins,
Yes.
Mark Thornton,
Yes.
Deb Williamson,
Yes.
Dave Eastburn.
Abstain.
Okay, great. Motion carries with 4 ayes,
Yep.
2 abstains.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do I hear a motion to approve the transfer of unobligated and unexpended flexible savings account funds from Fund 72 to Fund 10 in an amount not to exceed $50,000 based on the final year-end balances? This transfer is in accordance with Department of Education guidance and will support the general fund and health insurance premium relief efforts.
So moved.
Deborah,
Second.
second by Ty.
Is this the entire balance, or is this just kind of the portion that we're comfortable?
No, this would be all of it. There was just under $50,000 that have been in that the FSA dollar account for quite a while. So, but it's all going to be earmarked for our self-funded platform. Who was
Deborah.
first? Deborah was first,
And Ty.
seconded by Ty. Got it.
Yeah. And by law, we have to move it back into Fund 10. And then
Correct.
from there, we can move it
Yep.
to the health funds.
Yeah, last I heard, Evan was still waiting on the guidance for that, so yeah.
He got it. We ran it through the auditor and then also the state too. So,
Cool.
and we talked with some other CFOs, SBOs.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, we'll move into board policies. Do I hear a motion to approve board policies with changes at the first reading?
So moved.
Second.
Ty and Porter.
I would just add again, the perfection was making sure that this was part of that first reading, correct, or is that a second, or is that a different one? That's the next one, never mind,
Okay.
not this one.
I thought the next one was deletions.
Yeah, there's one deletion.
This is what we're talking about.
This
the
one.
cell phone
Oh, yeah,
policy.
you're right, yep,
Right,
that's
sorry,
right.
I skipped the, there's no, I don't have a note here in mine for board policies at first reading.
All these are first. It just matter if it's a change or a new, because all the other ones have changes. This cell phone one's technically a new one.
Okay. So the cell phone is within the board policies with changes at the first reading?
Correct.
Okay. So, did we have a first and a second? Okay, so now we can
Yes.
discuss.
Who was my first?
I think it was me.
Ty and Porter.
I was your second. No.
God.
You're doing great.
Yeah, mine.
Do you confidence booster? Just be glad you don't do it every month.
We will tell Elvin they did great until he watches it back, and then
Yeah.
All right.
Makes you feel better. I think I was watching it anyway. So.
Do we want to discuss,
So what did we exactly decide here with cell phone? I mean, when are they not allowed to use their cell phones?
yeah. So the big one is in the third paragraph. Instructional time is defined as the entire school day from the moment a student enters the school building, including passing time, lunch areas, and recess, until the last bell rings.
So what will happen if they're caught? I mean, basically they're not allowed to use it all day. How does it work when they're caught using it? Because that's going to be a very big change for kids that have been completely abusing
Yeah,
it.
so first offense, it's in the office the rest of the day.
Yep.
Second offense, it's in the office until guardian parent comes and gets it.
Yep.
And it's the same in both the middle school and the high school handbooks that were in the consent agenda, so it's the exact same language,
Yep.
exact same verbiage.
Now, how does it work for kids that need to contact their parents or
It'll be something to use the office phone.
office phone, and parents are gonna understand or get notification that they want to contact.
Yeah,
their
so
child?
once this goes through the second reading, once it's final
Yep.
board policy, then we'll send something out, probably not until early August.
Yep.
To all of our families that kind of walks through
Yep. Now
a
most
little
of
bit more in depth.
most of the staff is behind this as well, correct?
Yeah, I would say the high school, there's probably some sense of, hey, let's try to give them a little bit more freedom or responsibility or ability to use it, you know, and some of those non-instructional times.
Yeah.
I think we could, you know, I think we start a little bit more rigid, strict
Yep.
to begin with, and then go from there. But I met with the principal advisory committee a couple different times, all students, to get their feedback. And overall, I mean, they understand that this is probably something, you know, that's going to be better for them in the long run, but definitely going to be hard.
Now, of course, the kids that still have the ability to utilize that open campus,
Correct.
Right, need the property they can
Yep.
use as they please.
Correct.
But
Yep.
I'm all
At
for
the high
it.
school, 10 through 12, yeah.
I'm all for this. I've been waiting for it. You know, it's just there's a few caveats as a parent. You know, I'm gonna, you know.
Yeah, there's going to be changes. There are some schools that, you know, have already been doing this. There's some that tried in a little 2-week window at the end of the year to kind of see what went well, what didn't. We're going to kick off the year with it, so yeah.
What about the teachers, any instructors, will they also be limited? Will they have to put their cell phones away for the duration of the class?
Yeah, the expectation would be during my responsibility as a teacher, I'm not going to be using my phone or having my phone with me. Yeah.
Okay, that's good, because
Yep.
students will call,
Oh, for sure.
you know what?
Absolutely.
In that third paragraph as well, it calls out anybody who's like a 504 plan, so that'll be worked out with administration basically.
And we have some of those already that are written as such, so there will be some exceptions already in place.
And then one clarification, IASB does have like a regulation that we could attach to this, and it lays out more of those how-tos. We as a policy committee kind of said we would leave those to the handbooks, so we'll let that be more fluid there rather than having the regulations to be in our policies, so,
That's a good call.
yeah. We'll
So-
try that.
So really, this is one of ISB's examples with the addition of what we defined as instructional time.
Yep. Any other questions
This
on
may
that
be a
one?
policy we visit again at this time next year.
Potentially.
Yeah.
And then just one more quick one. So the other ones are all most of them are tied to district record policies. So they're all adding basically the superintendent or another designee was basically a big one that they added for a bunch of those.
And secretary duties were in there. Zach knows all about that now.
Yes. And then we did delete 804.06 I think last month, and there was a regulation for that, so that's the delete that's on here as well. And then there was a couple other ones that just had some minor changes. So
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the board policies with changes at the first reading, including the cell phone policy.
That's Ty and then second by Mark.
And so all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now we can move to the motion to approve the board policy for deletion. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Ty. Second. Second.
Ty and Mark Porter.
Get rid of them policies.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding to support Cambridge Little Achievers grant application, aligning with state efforts to expand childcare access and better serve our families through enhanced early childhood and school-age programming?
So moved.
Second.
Porter and Deborah.
I think it sounds pretty awesome from what I'm reading.
So what all will it entail?
For us, not a ton. It's more for them. It's required for them to meet eligibility for the grant. They receive support from district food service transportation. No financial impact for us as a district. We might be eligible for the $7,000 in transportation reimbursement.
So when you say transportation, are you guys actually providing busing services from homes to there, or just busing services from there to school?
That.
Yep. Okay.
Yep.
And then the food, like we've already been providing a food service to them, correct?
Correct.
And you're just going to continue
That's
that.
gonna be a side contract, yeah.
Now, does that how many meals does the high school provide to that a day? Does that,
I have no idea.
because we haven't talked about that for a year and a half, but I just, as far as I knew,
I'm not sure.
We started in the 80s, and I think it was growing towards 100, wasn't it?
does that put any sort of, because it seems like to me, that'd be 10 or 20% of the high school kitchen's food service every day, but,
I have no clue. I can ask Stephanie.
you know. Well, either way, if it allows you guys to more utilize your food program, it's great, as long as the district's not losing money, so.
No, yeah, we won't. Shouldn't.
It actually helps you, it makes it
Correct.
yeah.
Potentially. Helps us.
Yeah, so this memorandum is just us saying we support Cambridge Little Achievers in trying to get this grant, and yeah, it'd be awesome if they did.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Do I hear a motion to approve ITS vendor for the E-rate Category 2 project with a total cost of $379,982.41 and an estimated district share of $190,019.91 to be paid for out of the Pebble levy
So moved.
fund?
Second.
Porter.
All right, again, this is what we all kind of heard through the committee reports. One thing I think maybe wasn't noted was that a lot of this equipment can also be moved into a new building, so
When the bond passes.
when the bond passes,
Not if, when.
yes. Any other questions?
I just want to say that I think this is these are good infrastructure improvements that we're making, and we're only covering 30% of the cost, which
Yeah.
is great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it makes sense to participate. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Do I hear a motion to approve the payment of Carl A. Nelson's AIA application 001 of $14,025.80 for the upgrade to the high school ceiling and lighting
So moved.
project?
Second.
Deborah and Mark Thornton.
So,
Discussion here.
so of course they had the low bid. Is this, what exactly is this for then?
I'm just pulling it up.
Because I know that they had the low bid for this. I'm just curious why we're getting billed for another 14,000.
I think it's in that AIA document. The original subcontract was 51,200.
Which was dramatically lower than the other ones.
Total completed and stored to date is 14,764. Current payment due 1425.
Balance to finish.
This isn't really an adjustment, it's just,
It's
this is
just
what
a
to do now.
payment, or
Correct.
it's just on here because it's of this amount.
So this is just part of the 51,000.
Part of the 51.2, it's the initial payment, yeah.
Okay. I was just concerned it was going to be on top of the 51,000.
Nope.
I'm concerned if they were going to start brushing up closer to where the other bids were. So.
No.
Okay. Fair enough.
Okay. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries.
Did you say this project has started yet, Zach, or is it?
Yeah, I
So,
believe-
It,
Yeah.
Yes, it's not where it should be though.
They're,
So-
they're a little behind schedule.
Yes.
Like a couple days or a couple weeks.
No, probably 3 or 4 days at least.
What's causing that?
I don't know. I'd have to ask Josh.
All right,
Okay.
when you're ready, we'll move into superintendent updates.
Yeah, some of you already had highlighted the work that our bond team has been working through, just connected to the $39 million vote that'll be on the ballot in November. Just encourage you to continue to get signatures. We have until September to get those, but the sooner the better, so we can ensure that that's on the ballot. Some of those.
Is there something different about these petitions than last time? Because I thought there was like at the header of the last one, I thought there was like the name of the county, the type of election. So this one doesn't have that.
Yeah, so I mean, it's got. I think it's got that on the top.
Has anyone looked at? Are we gonna set up a booth at the fair next week, or have we? Has anyone thought about that? That'd be a pretty good spot to get the needed signatures.
Yeah, it's got all the counties.
If we all took a shift for a day, not a day, but a couple hours.
I didn't even know the fair was next week. That's how checked out I've been. Comes up fast.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea. I'm working there one day for, I can't remember what I'm doing, but
I don't know, if we set up a table in that one building there or whatever, if we each took a couple hours, you'd probably,
yeah.
I mean, we don't need to do it the whole time, I just think for one day and just man table for one day, we each take shifts. Probably 2 people a table if we're not on our own.
Yeah, so we have just over 100 right now. Like I said, need 750. Wanted to highlight, and again, I think this was alluded to in Dave's report, but the number of pairs we're gonna need, we need to hire a good number of them, so we added the $750 signing bonus. Again, this is all gonna be continuing to, as we best serve or support that subgroup of employee. We met with them all again, or not all of them, the ones that wanted to come on June 3rd, to get more feedback around kind of where we're moving, and presented some ideas that, maybe they would be interested in from a, not so much an hourly wage increase, but just some other things that we could build in. to the budget, not for this upcoming year, but the next year, of which there's a reliability bonus. So that really connects to them showing up for work, doing what they're supposed to. There was a professional learning punch card almost, so they could pick a couple different times where they would come and get paid just what a teacher would get paid, $29 an hour to be a part of the learning if it connects with what they're doing in their kind of day-to-day support for kids. That's not something they've been a part of in the past. They came up with a few other ideas as well, and we're going to continue to meet with that leader group to finalize kind of what those specific ones are going to be. So when we do end up finalizing a budget and creating some incentives for them, it's ready to go for the 26-27 school year. You're going to get a board self-evaluation document or tool. Megan and I have been kind of looking at what best would work for you. It's not going to take too much time for our work session come July 14th, so be on the lookout for that. Probably send that out either this Sunday or the next. Probably not the next, probably this Sunday, so you can start looking at it at least, and then Megan may follow up with something with a little bit more just kind of direction on what her expectations are as you come to the table on the 14th for that work session. I just want to thank Josh Wiley. Again, he's done a lot for the district, stepping into a new role this year with added responsibilities, has really approached it with a positive attitude. We're going to miss him and know that his next adventure will be beneficial for him and his family, but has been just a bright light within our system. Yeah, and I think from a committee standpoint, we're starting to get a little bit better rhythms with that. Obviously, it was new, but it does, I think, just bring more knowledge around different things that we're a part of or you're supporting or governing. And then when you get to the table, being able to share that work and asking questions, I think is really positive. So as far as, I'm concerned, I'd like to continue that as we look at the calendar for next year, keeping our board meetings on that third Monday at 6:30, if that's okay with you. And then committees, if they get, depending on who runs for the board, who doesn't, we may adjust that come November when we have the restructuring of things, but would like to continue that. If you do have anybody that has approached you about running for board, I would just encourage you to tell them to reach out to me. I'd like to sit down with anybody as we get to that spot to kind of walk through some things with them. I've got a couple things I'd like to highlight, so if we get to that spot, or if you have people, just encourage them to do that. I wanted to highlight our summer athletic enhancement. Again, kind of getting ready to move into this new normal during the academic year for our student athletes. But this summer, we have the expectation for our kids to come on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays at the high school level. We've had anywhere between 60 and 80 kids show up every single day, which is really encouraging for our coaches, and it's going to be good for our kids too, so that's a positive. Finally, just wanted to highlight July 8th, we're going to have our new certified staff here in the building in the morning. It's more of a cut through all the red tape and get all of the housekeeping things done, so when they can come back in August, it's not so much of that fire hose, all of the benefits and payroll and computers and all that stuff. They already have all that, and they can kind of step in come August with a little bit more prepared, I guess. That's all I got.
Great.
Did that make sense? Was that?
Yeah, it did. I think my only concern was that I see what you mean by the district is called out, but then there's no date for the election, but the date's not required.
Correct.
That's what it's
Yep.
not concerned.
All right, let's move into highlights.
Just add it to my
Let's start
file.
with Dave. Would you like to share highlights?
Highlights. Well, I was coming out of the strategic planning. I mean, we can quibble as to whether it's a mission statement, vision statement, whatever, but I consider it a mission statement. But I really, really like the decision to make the district a destination. I thought that was something I thought of. I used the word choice, but destination is better. So, and I'm anxiously awaiting how to translate that into meaning and action. what exactly does a destination district look like? And I think that's the next step, but I'm pleasantly surprised. And I am pleased to say that. I really, really think that puts us into the competitive quadrant and really puts the emphasis on being competitive as a first-rate education organization. So I commend Zach and the strategic planning and the admin team for making that decision. I'm really pleased.
Thanks. Deborah?
I agree, absolutely, but I am so thrilled about the cell phone policy. I cannot tell you. I cannot wait to see how the scores, all the scores, the academic achievement, the growth, I can't wait to see how that changes in the next 2 and 3 years. Because I'm just like, I just have faith that it will.
Ty?
I'd like to echo what Zach was saying about Josh Wiley. Wish him the best moving on. Not a lot of us around this board table were here when he came on board. He stepped into a big old mess of like 400 open tickets, and he's moved us in the right direction, closed all of those, and just really moved that program in a great direction. And sounds like he's got a really good opportunity, so can't fault him for taking it, even though it bums me out personally that we're gonna miss him.
Thanks. Mark?
I'd pretty much just echo everything everyone else just said. The same thing that he said. Josh Wiley. I've kind of had the pleasure of sitting on the facilities committee the last 3 years or whatever and gotten to know Josh very well, and he's done a really great job with the district. So I was really disappointed to hear last week that he was leaving, but I understand why he's doing what he's doing, and I look forward to seeing who we find. I think Zach and Evan will do a fantastic job of finding a new position or new person for that position. So I look forward to see what comes of that. And then also the cell phone policy. I'm really hoping that really has a positive effect on student achievement. I think we all know how much of a distraction that can truly be to a student every day. And I never would have dreamed when I was in high school, having access to a cell phone the way that kids do today. So I'm really excited to see what that comes of that, and that's been a long project in the making. So I'm glad to see it's going to finally be enacted, and it's the way it's going to be next year. So looking forward to all that. So
Cool. Mark?
It's good to get all the feedback on the scores, so that was good information to get, kind of trying to figure out how to chew through that and understand and ask questions that, how can we understand and nail down what's going to make the most impact if changes are needed. So that was a good baseline to get. And then also for the morning workout thing, I think that's cool. I know both my kids are enjoying it, and I think keep them active, and then also just I think it creates more of a camaraderie of doing things together. And for high schoolers and middle schoolers, getting up early in the morning is a good routine to keep into over the summer. So cool things are happening.
Yeah, I agree. It feels like we're in a building phase, which is really exciting. This is the 12th month, right, of the 12th board meeting for you in the district, and it feels like it's great to see the positive data on student achievement, and to see programs in play, new programs like the athletic program in place, and just it feels like we're going to get these plans on a page from each building, so it feels like we don't have everything figured out yet, but we're all working together and moving in the right direction, so we're really building now instead of scrambling, which is a nice feeling, I think. So that's it. That's my highlight. Thank you, Zach. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Award second Davy Spring.
All in
I got
favor?
softball to watch.
7:59.
We are adjourned at 7:59. Well
or
done.
something? Or?
Do I need to do all in favor? Say aye or
Aye.
Aye.
We have an app that.
Yeah.